Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another episode of 25 Genre Favourites. Today I'm going to talk about my 25 favourite musicals, even although I don't actually have that many favourite musicals. So I'm going to cheat, as I sometimes do, and this is going to be musicals and films sort of about music. So some of them will have people breaking into song for no real reason, as is the case in musicals, and some of them will actually have a theme about music, so there will be songs played by bands or whatever in the film, but not strictly a musical in the Seven Brides for Seven Brothers type of way. Spoiler alert, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers will not be on this list. But as always, this is a chance for you to tell me your 25 favourite musicals or films based around music, if you want to use the same loophole that I'm using. So again, this is just a bit of fun. So I'm going to start with a documentary. At the time I'd never heard of this documentary or the band, but sometimes when you're collecting boutique labels or certain line and steel books, you come across little gems. And this is the case for Mondo Steelbook number 19, and this is We Are X, which is a documentary about the band X Japan, or just X, who were one of the pioneers of Japanese heavy metal from the early 80s to 1997. It is almost like a real life Spinal Tap. There's deaths of members of the band, and pretentiousness and disasters and setbacks. It's funny and sad and tragic, and it also has some pretty good music. So I would highly recommend We Are X. You might not believe it's actually a true story, but it is actually a true story. So at number 24 is, for me, Woody Allen's last great film. It's Sweet and Low Down. As you can see, I've just got it in DVD. Starring Sean Penn, who I'm not like a huge fan of, but he fits this role perfectly. Woody Allen only appears in the film as himself, as one of the many talking heads about this guitar player, played by Sean Penn, who was almost the greatest Spanish guitar player in the world, behind Django Reinhardt, but he's always behind Django Reinhardt, so he's slightly less famous. But he is pretentious and a womanizer and a drinker. It's a period piece set in like the 20s or 30s. Sean Penn is genuinely funny in it. There's wonderful set pieces of some of his disasters and the kind of reasons why he was never as big as Django Reinhardt. And for people who can't stand Woody Allen, it does have the bonus of, as I said, Woody Allen's not really in it. He just has a couple of little talking heads moments as he talks about this character and his history. So next is another film that is only on DVD, and it's Peter Pan Live. Now, as you can see in this disc, there's perhaps one reason why I have this, and that's Christopher Walken as Captain Hook, the greatest Captain Hook. He sings, he dances, because it's a fairly famous story. He was in Puss in Boots when he was very young. Obviously he was in the Fatboy Slim video, dancing. He loves to dance, so he dances and sings. This was shot for live television, I think it was CBS, and Walken is absolutely brilliant as Captain Hook. The soundtrack's fantastic as well, which you can buy in the edition that has the DVD and the CD. It's an absolute blast, and Walken's having an absolute blast. And the fact that it's live television, and of course he nails it because he's brilliant. Not that I'm biased. Next on the list is a film from Malaysia that I did a random review of. It made me laugh, which not all films do nowadays, despite my previous entry of top 25 comedy films. This is Sellout. This is on the Canny label. This follows the Phony company, which has nothing to do with Sony, obviously. It's a film by Yoon Han Yeol. As I said, it's Malaysian. Again, this edition by Canny gives you the soundtrack as well. There's a couple of absolutely wonderful songs, including, Money, Why Do You Only Love Rich People? It has a character that's continually telling people he can remember everything because he's got a pornographic memory. Again, it's just people breaking out into song. It's moving, it's hilarious. It's obviously about commercialism and putting a brand on everything, and built-in obsolescence of those products. It's just so wonderful, and it's also about, there's another thread with this woman and reality TV and pushing the boundaries of reality TV. It's an absolute joy, and I would highly recommend it. It's just tremendous, and the extras on it are fantastic as well. Next is a film that is a mix of genres, to say the least. It's the Happiness of the Katakouris. It's funny because I've been doing videos on like Japanese Yakuza films and samurai films from the 60s and 70s, and a lot of them star or co-star Tetsuro Tanba, and he plays the grandfather in The Happiness of the Katakouris, and really gives it the heart. It's got wonderful songs. It does have a heart. It's about this family that the patriarch really wants to open this bed and breakfast in the country, but all the guests start dying. It's actually a remake of Kim Ji-woon's The Quiet Family, which I didn't know at the time. Obviously I have The Quiet Family now. They're both completely different. Quiet Family is not a musical, but it's just as enjoyable as a black comedy. Choi Min-sik's in it, and Kang Soo-hong, that's not his name. This is just a treat. Animation, silliness, zombies and musicals. It's a Takashi Miike staple. Next is a film probably by my third favourite Ishii, Katsuhito Ishii. This features on this lovely box set by Third Window, and it's Hello Janucci. This is a film that I really shouldn't like because, well, one, it's sort of a musical. Two, it's about a bunch of school kids, but it's actually brilliant. That's some of them there, and they have a band, and there's a new female school teacher that they all fall for. Again, I shouldn't enjoy it as much as I do, but it just puts a smile on my face. Yeah, as I said, probably my third favourite, Ishe by Ntero Ishe, and the other Ishe, whose name seems to evade me at the moment. Sogo Ishe, but then he was also known as Gatsuro Ishe, possibly. But Hello Janucci from 2014 is an absolute joy. And again, in these dark times, it will put a smile on your face, which is rare. Next at 17, I think, or 18, or even 19. I had to get John Sayles in here somewhere, didn't I? So Honey Dripper with Danny Glover. This is just a beautiful little film from 2007. Again, another period piece, but great cast. Charles S. Dutton's in it as well. Stacey Keach, Mary Steenburgen, Keb Mo, and Dr. Mabel John for the music. Danny Glover is the owner of a club, and the pressures that he's under, and also his past. It's about the birth of electric music, which Gary Clark turns up with a guitar. It's just a beautiful little film, beautifully shot as well. It might not be one of Sayles' masterworks, but it is an absolute joy to spend time with these people. A little bit different from Honey Dripper. This is 1993, and this is CB4. This is the closest anybody's got to Spinal Tap, which may or may not appear later in the list. This is obviously Spinal Tap in rap. Chris Rock's Finest Hour, directed by Tamara Davis. It does probably have the funniest sex scene in cinema history in it. And again, it's about these suburban guys who decide to become gangster rappers to become famous. It actually stars Eddie Murphy's brother as the real gangster who's put away, and then when he comes out, he's really annoyed because CB4 have taken over his persona and become famous. The album's like straight out of Low Cash. You could argue it's funnier than Straight Outta Compton, but as I said, it's the closest anybody's got to Spinal Tap. Even the people who made Spinal Tap have tried like 3 or 4 times in different genres to make Spinal Tap again, and it just hasn't worked. But CB4 is the closest. Next, it's another Vinegar Syndrome partner label release. It's The Tune by Bill Plympton. This came out a couple of months ago. Bill Plympton's unique animation style. It's funny, I had this in VHS. I think it was on Tartan VHS. And I was so pleased when Deaf Crocodile announced that they were going to release this. You also get some lovely shorts by Bill Plympton, including Your Face, How to Kiss, Guard Dog, which is wonderful. Some great tunes as well about a struggling songwriter that needs to come up with a bunch of songs by the end of the day, and just all the characters he meets in the land of Flooby Nooby. Based on a true story, of course. It's just an absolute joy, and certainly a sentimental favourite. Next is one of the films that, for me, unless I'm wrong, but it doesn't have a Blu-ray, and for the life of me I can't imagine why. It is from Paramount, so that might be a reason, but it is bizarre that it doesn't. And it's Oh, What a Lovely War. I mean, it's directed by Richard Attenborough, so you would think it would have a Blu-ray. It's got one of the greatest final shots in cinema history. It's got an all-star cast. It is a musical about the First World War. Again, it's funny. There's some good songs in it, but it's also pretty sad, obviously. It follows kind of 3 or 4 generations of the one family who all go off to fight, and of course they're all killed. It is kind of... It's a horrible film, but it's also quite beautiful. It's got an all-star cast. John Mills and Larry Olivier and one of the Redgrave women. Is it Lynn or is it Vanessa? It might be, I can't actually remember. But there is a wonderful scene where in the seaside in the theatre, trying to recruit all these young men to go, because obviously it's a big adventure and they'll be home by Christmas and it'll be exciting. And they get one of the Redgraves is down the bottom and she looks really glamorous and gorgeous from the distance, but then when they actually come up to meet her, she's all haggard and she's got way too much makeup on, and it's just kind of as these boys really lying about their age to go on this big adventure, basically to be cannon fodder. So it does have humour, but it is bleak AF, as the kids might say, and as I said, it's just got a very sobering and pretty kind of moving ending that's kind of burned in the retina of your eye, or your mind's eye even. Next is a bizarre musical from 1953, the only time Dr. Seuss was actually involved in a film, and after it he said he would never do it again. It's the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. One of those films that is visually ravishing, and it's Wonderama and Technicolor. Unfortunately, this is the 89-minute version. We'll never see the other version because I think there's about another 4 songs in the longer cut. But it was just too weird, too strange, too dark. About a little boy who wants to learn the piano, and the piano teacher actually has this enormous piano, and it has, well, literally 2,500 little kids to play it. Maybe not 2,500, because that would just mean kids had 2 fingers each. It'll be 500 kids then, because 500 times 10 is 5,000. Live maths on the channel. This is just a bizarre, strange little film, but also kind of fantastic, and some really good songs in it. Next is a film that I just dropped on the floor. Again, this has been in my life, and I'm sure it's been in lots of people's life for decades. Alan Parker's Bugsy Malone. Couldn't make Bugsy Malone now. One of the most violent films ever made. 85 gazillion tons of cream pies were made during the making of this film. Some great songs, Bad Guys, and obviously the end song, We Could Have Been Anything We Wanted to Be, is just like, it's so moving. Lots of fun. Jodie Foster, Scott Bial. Wonderful, wonderful film. Alan Parker's finest ever. Speaking of Alans, Next up is Alan Clark's Billy the Kid and the Green Bay's Vampire. Yes, this is actually a real film. This is just gold. It's bizarre because I hadn't seen it for about 20 years, and then I watched it and it was as if I just watched it yesterday. Because it's Alan Clark, even though it's a musical about snooker, which might not translate to everywhere around the world, it's still about class. Alan Armstrong plays, well, he almost plays Ray Reardon, to be honest. But he kind of plays the establishment. And Phil Daniels of Quadrophenia fame, he plays Billy the Kid, the upstart. And it's basically about class as well as snooker. It's got some great songs in it. Shot really instantly. Interestingly even, not really shot instantly. And this should really have a Blu-ray. I mean, this is an indicator film through and through. I mean, we already did Scum by Alan Clark. This might be an oddity, an outlier in Alan Clark's output, but if you actually, as I said, because it's about class, it's perhaps not really as much of an outlier as it seemed on the surface. Great songs, great performances, and if Indicator's watching, please can we have it on Blu-ray to really see that Green Bay's pop. Next, from Finland, I'm going to go to Aki Kaurismäki. And 1989, Leningrad Cowboys Go America, which you won't be able to see there. This is just my kind of humour. They have very pointy shoes and very pointy hair. Even the babies and the dogs have the pointy hair. It's just an absolute blast. Again, it's right up my alley as far as humour is concerned, as is Kaurismäki in general. It's a road movie. It's just an absolute blast as their manager wants to drink all the beer. Highly recommend it. Next, at number 11, is a film that's so good that I got 2 editions of it. I don't do that normally. It's Frank by Lenny Abrahamson, starring Michael Fassbender, even though we'd never see Michael Fassbender's face because he's under this. This is just, it absolutely blew me away. One of those films that absolutely blew me away. There's a nice lenticular of it. Coca-Cola Lipstick Ringo, Dance All Night, Dance All Night. One of the finest songs ever made. This is about young Mr. Gleeson, Donald Gleeson, who is a music wannabe. He really has no talent, but he just wants to be famous. And through some strange events, he kind of fills a slot in Michael Fassbender or Frank's band, who are a bit odd. And in the background, he's leaking all this information to social media while the band go to record their latest album. It's about fame and wanting to be famous rather than actually being talented and wanting to create art. It's fascinating if you are a fan of how bands record, how things, the creative process. The band itself is a bit of, if you kind of like Zappa or Captain Beefheart, it's kind of got that vibes. Frank gets inspiration from anything, a door opening and shutting, to Donald Gleeson's character cutting himself shaving. Maggie Gyllenhaal's fantastic in it. It's just an absolute joy, but it's also about mental health as well, as Frank is a little bit unhinged and certainly on the spectrum. It's just a wonderful film. As I said, it absolutely blew me away. The humour is right up my street, and hopefully it'll be right up your street too. into the top 10, and number 10, we talk about Citizen Kane, but we never really talk about Muppet Treasure Island. Muppet Treasure Island is an absolute masterpiece. Tim Curry, for me, is easily the best human in a Muppet film. I know Michael Caine gets all the kudos for A Christmas Carol, but Michael Caine doesn't have Tim Curry's singing voice. The song Professional Pirate is just absolute gold. Miss Piggy has wonderful numbers as well. It has Adventure, Daring Do, and Tim Curry. Even the song Cabin Fever is just tremendous. It's one of the all-time greats. At number 9, arguably one of my favourite recommendations from Hoos over at A Touch of Film. It's Swing Girls from 2004. This is a Japanese film, strangely enough, about a group of sort of ruffian schoolgirls who accidentally, through no fault of their own, poison the school band and only have a certain amount of time to replace them in a competition, but of course they're not really interested in music. It's again, if it was British, it's kind of like Brassed Off, that sort of thing, but obviously it's better because it's Japanese and it's schoolgirls, but it doesn't have the sentimentality of things like Brassed Off, etc, etc. It's just an absolute joy. I really need to somehow find it in Blu-ray. This is a DVD, but it's absolute gold. Again, it's a perfect example of stories that you've seen before countless times, but because it's just done so well and it's a slightly different twist on it, it's absolutely wonderful. So I would highly recommend Swing Girls. At number 8, again, it's a film that's been in my life for decades, since it came out in 1986. I'm a huge David Byrne Talking Heads fan, so True Stories, the only film David Byrne ever directed, starring John Goodman in one of his early roles. It might have been his first, I'm not sure about that. It's kind of David Byrne's pseudo-documentary of a Texas town. Great characters, Spalding Gray, and of course one of my favourite human beings of all time, Pop Staples. Pop Staples is in it. The Criterion is quite interesting. It's kind of a little newspaper as the booklet. Great songs, as you'd expect, but Pop Staples is in it. It's hard to believe Pop Staples is in Barry Levinson's Wag the Dog as well, but Pop Staples is in this. I think that's the take-home message. Go listen to Pop Staples and the Staple Singers. It'll make your life way better. At number 7, again, not a musical, but so about music. It's Almost Famous. This is the 4K. Cameron Crowe's finest work, as far as I'm concerned. The director's cut is just absolutely wonderful. The theatrical cut's good, but the director's cut is even better. It's like an extra 40 minutes or so. About a 70s band, and based on the true life of Cameron Crowe as a young journalist faking his age. Philip Seymour Hoffman has a fantastic performance as a journalist. Frances McDormand's fantastic as Patrick Fugit's worried mother. Kate Hudson, Jason Lee, Billy Crudup in his finest work. Feruzia Balk, Anna Paquin. It's absolutely glorious. If you're a fan of 70s rock, you'll get a lot of pleasure out of it. It's got a great soundtrack as well. And again, even at the longer cut, you just want to spend time with these people, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Next, I haven't included The Red Shoes just because it's more ballet, but I have included Tales of Hoffmann, which is obviously opera, but also sumptuous Powell and Pressburger and Hein Heckroth glory. Robert Helpman, just one of the greatest performances of all time. Obviously the Venice sequence is legendary, but the other sequences are fantastic as well. And it's one of the few, well, that's maybe not true, but certainly one of the wonderful stories where the hero's an actual prat and deserves everything he gets. But Robert Helpman's fantastic, it looks gorgeous. I was actually lucky enough to see this in a cinema when it was restored, back when I actually went to the cinema. What an experience. So Tales of Hoffmann had to kind of get there. Next at number 5 is a biopic, but don't fall asleep because it's actually an interesting biopic. It's not one of those chronological biopics that are just fairly dull and forgettable. This is Francois Gerard's 32 short films about Glenn Gould, the famous Canadian piano player who specialised in Bach. His recordings were actually sent into space, so should be in the universe somewhere. But it's 32 short films, literally. Some are just bits of his music, some are Colin Farrell playing Glenn Gould, some of them are audio interviews with the real Glenn Gould. You know, they range from like a minute long to 10 minutes long. It's just such an interesting way to shoot a biopic that actually makes it interesting. As I said, because quite a lot of biopics are just watch once and never watch again. But 32 short films about Glenn Gould, another film that needs a Blu-ray, is really fascinating. I mentioned Paul Williams earlier because he did the music for Bugsy Malone. He also did the music for Brian De Palma's Phantom of Paradise, which is even better than Bugsy Malone. This is in the discussion for my favourite Brian De Palma film. This is obviously Phantom of the Opera, a bit of Faust, a bit of Portrait of Dorian Gray. Paul Williams actually stars as Swan, this evil music producer who steals all the ideas from the guy who had become the Phantom. So much fun. Jessica Harper, and it's great songs. The soundtrack's fantastic. I have the CD. Some of arguably the best closing credits song and closing credits in cinema history. Just a lot of fun. This kind of Phantom of the Paradise and the next film are always in contention for my favourite proper kind of musical of all time. But at number 3, this one's won this time just because whenever you think of Tim Curry, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, again, this has been in my life for quite some time. I've never obviously went to a live show with stockings and suspenders on. I'd draw the line at that. Yeah, obviously it's sad what's happened to Tim Curry, but we'll always have films like this, and Legend, and Clue, and Muppet Treasure Island, and It. Still a film that you can't watch with your parents. Number 2, the creme de la creme of mockumentaries. It's obviously Spinal Tap. Not really looking forward to the new one because it's not going to be as good, because it can't be. Again, perhaps not everybody appreciates it. Maybe you have to be a certain age, maybe you have to have a certain interest in a certain kind of music. But it's just absolutely wonderful, because again, you're laughing at these characters, but you're not laughing at them in a mean-spirited way. They're still adorable, they're still endearing, despite their obliviousness and despite their stupidity. So it's not kind of laughing at them in a nasty way that some of these kind of films that have been made since perhaps do. We still care about them, even although they're buffoons. But at number one, which again is not strictly a musical, but music, it's about music, and the soundtrack is legendary by the maestro himself, Giuseppe Tornatore's The Legend 1900. Again, this is an Italian Blu-ray of the director's cut, which is 170 minutes, and you need to watch the director's cut. Again, I don't know why there's not a boutique release of this. This should be in the Criterion collection. Again, Cinema Paradiso gets all the credit for Tornatore, but for me, Legend 1900 is 8.3 times better than Cinema Paradiso. Yes, it's ridiculous. Tim Roth plays a man who has spent his entire life on an ocean liner that goes from London to New York. He's never set foot on land, and he plays this grand piano. There's a great piano playing duel with Clarence Williams, who is kind of the face of jazz. It's just one of the great cinematic duels of all time. But Ennio Morricone's score, the Morricone note is all over it. Yeah, as I said, it's completely ridiculous, completely silly, but it just steals your heart. Lots of different kinds of piano playing, soft and gentle that would make a stone cry, and then more aggressive, jazzy. It's just an absolute joy. Flies by at 170 minutes, and that is my favourite musical of all time. So please do share your favourite musicals of all time or films about music. As I said, there's not any Singing in the Rain or anything like that in here, or Seven Brides for Seven Brothers even. Seven Brothers for Seven Brothers is a completely different film. But thanks very much for watching. Again, please let me know what some of your favourite musicals are. I'm always happy to read your choices, because they're usually far better than mine. And hopefully you'll join me again for more episodes of 25 genre favourites. Not quite sure what I'll do next, but you'll have to tune in to see. So this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.